The holdfast didn't respond immediately. They verified the signal, cross-checked voice patterns, waveform residues, and encrypted pulses. The AI governing their central relay station declared with 99.98% certainty. The origin matched the Elias Wren protocol. They remembered Elias. He wasn't a commander, scientist, or general. He was a technician. But in the early days of the collapse, he'd rerouted an energy conduit that allowed thousands to escape the Omega Reapers. He had refused evacuation to maintain the grid. People forgot. The holdfast did not. When the Delari signal arrived, relayed through old human bandwidths and bearing his identifier, every level command received it. Some doubted its authenticity. Others said it was a trap. But the Archwarden of the holdfast fleet stood before the council and said, "If he's still alive, we owe him. If he's gone, we still owe him." They mobilized. No grand announcement. No banners. Their ships, long dormant in cryolock orbiting core station, were awakened. Engineers wept as ancient dreadnoughts powered up. Lights flickered into life like eyes opening after deep sleep. Soldiers, decades in stasis, were revived. They had been training in simulations even while unconscious, minds shaped by neurodream warfare. They came out ready. Each warship bore old symbols, eagles, wolves, ancient Earth mythology once mocked by other species. But they were not the same. These humans were leaner, harder, focused. Their command structure decentralized. Their technology refined for efficiency, not spectacle. They were not conquerors. They were legacy bearers. Meanwhile, Shira waited. Her warning to the council had been dismissed. Her fleet reduced. The Brevani had already annexed 2 outer colonies. They moved faster than expected. She stood on the observation deck of her cruiser, watching refugees arrive from shattered outposts. She didn't regret sending the signal, even if no one answered. Her subordinates asked if she believed the humans would come. She said yes. They asked why. She said, "Because once we mattered to one of them." The first holdfast vessel appeared near the neutral zone, a stealth dreadnought called Seraphim. Its sudden presence triggered alarms across 5 monitoring arrays. The Brevani dismissed it as a relic. They mocked the design, called it a ghost ship, until it disabled an entire command fleet without firing a single shot. The Seraphim's onboard AI hacked into Brevani systems using linguistic payloads no one else could decipher. Shields dropped. Weapons jammed. Engines froze. The dreadnought left without leaving a corpse. It was a message. Humanity was back. The Delari Council demanded an explanation. Shira didn't offer one. Instead, she handed them the Earth coin. Some of them remembered it. Most didn't. She said, "This is what they remember." More ships arrived. Not thousands. Only dozens. But each was a fortress. Each bore the name of someone lost during the Terran collapse. The holdfast didn't broadcast ultimatums. They simply deployed in orbit near threatened colonies. They offered shelter. They fixed orbital grids. They spoke rarely, but when they did, they asked only one question: who helped us? The Brevandi miscalculated. They assumed humanity sought revenge. They prepared for bombardments, sieges, and terror strikes. Instead, they saw quiet efficiency, protection, unyielding defense. Human forces refused to retreat, refused to abandon a single ally. And when a Delari transport ship was attacked and its escort destroyed, it was a human stealth corvette that rescued the survivors. They found a child on board. She was wearing a coin around her neck. That coin passed from hand to hand until it returned to Shira. When she saw it, she broke protocol and wept in front of her command crew. She issued a single-word command: stand. The crew rose. From that day, the Delari no longer referred to humans as primitive. They called them the returned. And that was only the beginning. The Brevani, bruised by humiliation and terrified by the precision of holdfast operations, convened an emergency war council. Their proposed counterstrike, Operation Glassborn, called for scorched earth tactics on suspected Allied systems. They justified it as a reminder of dominion, but their plans leaked, not through human sabotage, but Delari dissidents. Fear of the return had become faith, and faith when shared in whispers and networks, moved faster than fleets. On the former mining colony of Hesker, 9, word reached the Delari militia cell that the Brevani were en route. Instead of fleeing, they stood their ground, because 3 holdfast operatives had arrived. Only 3. The Brevani laughed. They stopped laughing after 20 minutes. The holdfast agents activated atmospheric reflectors, turning Hesker's violet storms into blinding covers. They surgically neutralized command officers using only sonic darts and pulse-coded jammers. No blood was spilled, yet an entire battalion surrendered to 3 humans wrapped in cloaks of dust and thunder. The footage was intercepted. It spread. 3 humans, 1 storm, 0 casualties. That phrase became a chant across outer systems. Meanwhile, back on the holdfast flagship Vigilant Memory, Command Archivist Elon Voss reviewed over 9,000 requests for aid. Each one cited an act of kindness from humanity's past. Her team didn't weigh politics. They weighed debt. Did someone shelter a human refugee? Did someone repair a human ship? Did someone once offer sanctuary? If yes, the holdfast came. Across the stars, the idea of reciprocity, of remembered compassion returned 1,000-fold, transformed humanity from an extinct footnote into a myth reborn. But not all were pleased. A faction within the Delari Senate feared growing dependency on the returned. They warned the humans would become their new overlords. Cloaked in altruism, they sent an envoy to Vigilant Memory, seeking terms, boundaries, and ultimatums. They were met by Captain Lyra Nash. She listened patiently. Then she handed the Delari envoy a data core. Inside, names, dates, faces, every act of kindness shown to humans in the collapse, documented with reverence. You may fear us, Lyra said, but know this, we encumber rule. We came because we remember. The envoy returned speechless. Meanwhile, the Brevani launched one final gambit. They would capture a holdfast operative alive and break them, publicly. They succeeded. They took Agent Marin Kale on Seraph 4. He didn't resist. The galaxy held its breath. The Brevani broadcast his interrogation live, demanding he reveal fleet movements, command hierarchies, secret codes. He did none of that. Instead, Kale told a story. He told of a Delari boy who had once snuck him bread under occupation, of how that boy's kindness kept him alive, of how everything Kale had become was because of that moment. And if you kill me, he said into the camera, 10,000 others will rise. Not for conquest, but because they remember the boy who shared his meal. The feed cut off. The cell exploded. Kale died. But across the systems, millions watched that moment. They didn't see weakness. They saw resolve. And the Brevani knew they had made a martyr, not a message. They had lit the fire themselves. Marin Kale's death did more than shake the Brevani. It cracked the illusion of their control. Across Delari colonies, silent vigils turned into rallies. In the slums of Varesh, murals of Kale's final words appeared overnight. The old Delari languages, long suppressed, were painted beneath each portrait. We remember. The words were not a threat. They were a promise. The holdfast responded in kind, not with vengeance, but presence. Ships appeared quietly above worlds once allied to humanity. They didn't demand loyalty. They offered assistance, infrastructure, medical stations, knowledge libraries, atmospheric repair units, all shared freely. The only cost was honesty. Had you once helped a human? Then you were family. This shattered more than Brevani tactics. It unraveled their mythology. The Brevani claimed they had inherited dominion from the silence of humanity. But now the silence had ended, and the galaxy listened to a new song. Admiral Senratal of the Brevani knew they were losing, not in battles. They still controlled more systems, not in numbers. Their fleets dwarfed the holdfast, but in spirit. And no war, however calculated, could survive the rot of disbelief. In desperation, the Brevani deployed conversion platforms, orbital propaganda stations designed to beam hypnotic frequencies and rewritten histories. They targeted neutral systems, hoping to rewrite the narrative faster than the truth could spread. But the truth had better weapons. The truth had witnesses. a Delari cargo pilot named Kiro, when captured the jamming fields of one such platform, and, while shielding a group of refugees aboard his rust bucket freighter, live-streamed the signal hacking attempts. His message: they can erase data but not memory. They can burn books, but not kindness. I remember the human who taught my daughter math. I remember the girl who sang lullabies when our power died. I remember, and I won't forget. The clip went viral. Within weeks, conversion platforms began exploding, not from enemy action, but sabotage. Not by humans, but locals. Each blast was followed by a signature broadcast. You cannot rewrite what we remember. In the galactic northeast, where the old ruins of the Clithery drifted in silence, an ancient relay suddenly awoke. It transmitted one name in dozens of extinct languages. Humanity. No source. No location. Just the echo. Some thought a glitch. Others, a message. The holdfast confirmed nothing. But behind closed doors aboard the Vigilant Memory, they analyzed the relay's origin. It traced back to a beacon sealed 500,000 years ago, programmed to activate only if humanity's honor was defended after death. The beacon had lit itself. Someone or something had judged the actions of the galaxy worthy. This sparked theological panic among the Parnan cults, whose faith claimed humanity had ascended into godhood after death. Suddenly, their scriptures seemed less metaphor and more prophecy. Pilgrims flooded once forbidden ruins. Artifacts bearing human DNA were exalted as relics. A new movement rose. The Keepers of the Memory. They weren't aligned with the Holdfast. They had no weapons, no ships, but they had stories. And in a war of symbols, the Holdfast's greatest weapon became its oldest. The truth of what humanity had been and what it had chosen to become. But the Bravandi weren't finished. Their final escalation was desperation disguised as diplomacy. A delegation was sent under white flags to the Holdfast fleet. They requested audience, not with military leaders, but historians. They wanted to recontextualize the conflict. They offered archives, DNA samples, shared tech, even pre-collapsed human relics. Captain Lyra Nash met them again. She accepted nothing. Instead, she offered a single tablet containing every name of every non-human who had once saved a human during the collapse. Over 14 million entries. As the Bravandi stared at the list, Nash spoke. This is not about blood. It's about memory. We are not here for vengeance. We are here to answer kindness. And if you truly seek peace, find your name on that list. Or earn it. The Bravandi delegation left in silence. Not long after, the final spark ignited. A single Bravandi colony, fed up with propaganda and seeking aid for a collapsing dam, reached out to the Holdfast, not through official channels, through a child. The dam threatened millions, and the child, whose ancestor had once been a medic to humans, pleaded to the stars through an open-frequency transmission. Please, they don't listen, but I know you're real. My teacher says your people helped us before. Please, we need help now. That message reached Vigilant Memory. 3 hours later, a task force arrived. No weapons drawn. No demands made. Just engineers. Builders. Human problem solvers. The dam held. The colony didn't just survive. It rebelled. The Bravandi governor fled. The child was honored as a voice of hope. And across the systems, a new term was whispered. The call. It meant more than a transmission. It meant belief. Belief that if you had once done good to a human, if your ancestors had stood with Earth in its darkest hour, then somewhere, somehow, they would come, not as gods, not as conquerors, but as a fleet of memory, bound by something older than law, loyalty. And as the last of the Bravandi dreadnoughts repositioned to defensive orbits, the galaxy held its breath, because they knew this wasn't just about war anymore. This was about legacy. The Bravandi Empire, once proud and vast, was now quiet. Too quiet. Scouts along the Perseid border reported mass fleet withdrawals, planetary evacuations, even signs of orbital scuttling. Entire worlds, stripped of resources, were being abandoned. At first, the galaxy feared a superweapon, but the Holdfast knew better. They recognized retreat. Captain Lyra Nash reviewed the sensor data herself. Planetary atmospheres were being seeded with trace minerals, ecosystems overclocked for fast regeneration, digital vaults purged, not of weapons but history. The Brevandi weren't preparing for war. They were trying to vanish. They were scrubbing the record of their empire. Why? Because they knew something was coming. Something the galaxy had not seen in 500,000 years. The full awakening of the holdfast. It began with a whisper across the neural net of the archive ships. Coded signals wrapped in poetry and loss. The meaning, the vote has passed. Holdfast Protocol designated it as Genesis Resolution 9, a once-in-an-existence directive authorizing total mobilization of humanity's sleeping legacy, not for conquest, not for punishment, but for truth. They would open the vaults. At the edge of the Voron spiral, an artificial moon cracked open, revealing rows of lightless monoliths, each one a dormant vessel of ancient human design, far more advanced than any holdfast ship currently in service. Silent for eons, powered by dark phase quantum matrices, they began to glow, one by one. These were not warships by name, but the stars remembered them. And so did the Brevandi. They called them the Silent Choir, not because they broadcast threats, but because every time they appeared, civilizations vanished. They had been humanity's last peacekeepers, constructed at the twilight of the collapse, left in slumber in case the galaxy forgot why it should never provoke Earth again. The choir was now awake. The galaxy stood still. The Brevandi leadership panicked. They issued contradictory orders, split fleets, imploded logistics chains. Their command structure shattered not by force, but by dread, because no one fights the choir. You beg it not to sing. But the holdfast had no intention of destruction. Their command was simple. Transmit memory. Speak your truth. We will weigh it. On world after world, AI hubs, historians, priests, and survivors scrambled to compile every record of kindness their people had shown to humanity. Letters, relics, transcripts, personal logs. Entire libraries were transmitted. In some cases, holdfast judged favorably. Ships landed. Aid was given. Peace was affirmed. In others, judgment was silence. No fleet appeared. No message sent. And that silence, to some, was more terrifying than war, because silence meant you were forgotten. On the shattered ice world of Tyro 7, the last Brevandi War conclave met. They argued. Some wanted to beg, others to fight. A third faction, a younger generation born after fall, proposed something radical. Let us remember. Let us change. But they were overruled. Pride, that ancient sickness, still had roots. And so the Brevandi enacted Project Eclipse, a fail-safe protocol designed to activate a chain of entropy bombs hidden beneath the core cities of 11 major galactic civilizations. It would plunge those worlds into chaos, buying Brevandi time to regroup and flee to the uncharted exocrypt. They sent the activation code, and nothing happened. The bombs didn't respond. Instead, a single message played on every Brevandi terminal. You planted these in the dark, but we were watching. A map appeared, displaying every entropy bomb's location, each one marked disarmed. Then the message concluded. We do not punish you because we are strong. We spare you because others once spared us. What followed was not peace, but reckoning. Brevandi ships began broadcasting surrender codes, some to the holdfast, others to their former enemies. Their empire, built on fear, collapsed in days. No shot was fired. The last Brevandi emperor, Tal Corvin, recorded a public statement before he fled into exile. He faced the camera, alone, no guards, no banners. I was taught that humanity's silence was victory. I now see it was grief. And when they returned, they remembered more than just their pain. They remembered mercy. And that is why we lost. He disappeared. The Brevandi were no longer an empire. They were a cautionary tale. The galaxy changed. Memorials rose on planets that had once hidden human refugees. Entire stations were rededicated to the memory. Cultures rewrote their calendars, marking the return as year one of new era. But the holdfast didn't stay. They left as quietly as they had come. Not all of them, but most. The choir returned to slumber. The archive ships resumed their watch, and humanity once again became a myth in motion, seen only in echoes and gratitude. Captain Lyra Nash left one final transmission, accessible to any sentient species capable of understanding empathy. It read, "We do not demand tribute. We do not seek loyalty. We do not ask you to worship us. We only ask that if one day someone stumbles, you do what you can to help them stand again. And when they ask why, tell them, because long ago we once helped a human." From the high orbit of Saturn 3, 1,000 choir ships loomed like sentinels, mute, unmoving, yet impossibly present. They didn't land. They didn't communicate in conventional ways. Instead, they began to transmit pulse data, waves of encoded emotion through ancient human frequency bands, designed not to be read by sensors but felt, empathically. The first to understand it were the Felari empaths. They wept as the message sank into them. Not pain, not fury, but mourning. The choir carried memories, not just of violence, but the cost of forgetting compassion. They carried the screams of burning colonies, yes, but also the laughter of forgotten children, the hands of alien healers cradling wounded Terrans, the quiet sacrifice of those who shielded the weak when war machines turned the stars red. These memories weren't tactical. They were ancestral. The choir was not here to conquer. They were here to remember, and to make sure no one ever forgot again. News of the choir's presence shifted galactic power in ways no fleet ever could. The Zaxari trade lords declared a universal ceasefire. The Drevathi signed their first peace treaty in 700 years. Entire cultures began opening their archives, desperate to find records of any moment, no matter how small, when they had helped a human, not out of fear, but out of a longing to be part of something timeless. A legacy, a shared truth. The Garen of Thule Prime unearthed a rusted lockbox in the sands. Inside, a child's drawing of a human soldier holding hands with a Garen girl, both smiling, surrounded by stars. They built a monument around it. On the outer rim, a signal was picked up by the Holdfast scouts. It was weak, but unmistakably human. Coordinates pointed to a derelict mining outpost buried beneath the crust of a moon called Enri Luth. When they arrived, they found the outpost destroyed, half collapsed from seismic instability. But deep below, frozen in a collapsed tunnel, was a cryopod. Inside, a human man. Still alive, Holdfast medical units worked for 2 straight days to revive him. When he opened his eyes, he whispered, "They remembered?" His name was Jordan Teal. He had once been a young explorer who crashed during the first wave of expansion. Injured, starving, and alone, an alien farming tribe had found him, healed him, and helped him repair his distressed beacon. He'd told them, "Someday we'll return. I'll make sure of it." That was 500,000 years ago. Jordan's log entry had become corrupted in the crash. But one thing survived, the names of those who helped him. The same names etched now into the choir's memory cores. They had remembered. And now, so had he. The choir began to depart, not out of exhaustion, but purpose. One by one, the ancient vessels returned to their resting places. Not hidden, but visible. Each vessel left behind a beacon, a living archive of the events witnessed, the names remembered and the values preserved. Some became temples. Others became universities. A few became pilgrimage sites, but all carried the same inscription in hundreds of languages. "We are not your gods. We are your memory. Treat others not as you fear we will treat you, but as you hope we once treated you." On Earth, what was left of it, new life had begun. The humans of the Holdfast, descendants of a past shattered by time, knelt on the soil of their homeworld for the first time in generations. Lyra Nash stood among them. Beneath her boots, a world healing. Above her head, the choir's reflection, retreating into clouds. She looked out across the ancient mountains of old Europa and whispered to herself, "This time we start with gratitude." Final sequence, the eternal message. 1,000,000 years from now, when the stars have shifted and new species rise, one beacon will still pulse in the ruins of the Enri Luth moon. Its signal is simple. It doesn't teach math. It doesn't recite laws. It simply transmits a recording, a human voice. Warm, worn, calm. Hello. I don't know if you'll understand this, but if you're listening, it means someone helped you. Maybe they gave you food, or shelter, or simply listened. And if they did, don't forget them. Not because they were strong, but because one day someone helped us, and we never forgot. My name is Jordan Teal. I was the one they helped. This is my message. Not for me, but for all of you. Transmission ends. Stars fall silent again. But someone is always listening.